Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters. In pursuit of a serial killer, an FBI agent uncovers a series of occult clues that she must solve to end his terrifying killing spree. Yes, folks, this is our raw reaction review for Long Legs. July, the month that has just kept on giving for horror fans. And we're only in the second week, but we knew this. We knew Maxine was right up first, followed quickly by Longlegs. And we have finally, after many, many months of trying to track down screeners, trying to get invited to any press screenings, any advanced screenings, surprise screenings, got to see it with everybody else on opening night. Yes, I guess we're just not cool enough for Neon yet. You guys can change that. Keep showing some love towards the channel. But yes, this was hotly anticipated. We were both super duper excited, just like the rest of you were, to see this film. And man, it's finally here. Luke, how do you feel about Longlegs?
Oh boy, I'll tell you, July has been a stacked month for horror fans, and yeah, we knew some of this was coming, but some of it, we still got that oddity review coming out and a couple other things. But boy, stacked month for horror fans, and I gotta say, Longlegs did not disappoint. This one has had so much build up. I mean, it was on all of our most anticipated of the year list, and I gotta say, when we're talking about top 10 of the year, this is easily top 5. I know where this is sitting currently. And I know this is going to be a long conversation throughout the rest of the year here. This one had all the elements I needed to make this thing work storytelling wise. They added in even some elements I was not expecting, to be honest here. But for me, it all worked. And this one knocked out of the park for me easy.
Yeah, this was such a treat. I mean, I was excited for this. You've heard it. Everybody has said nothing but positive things about this film. And I know so many of you are thinking it can't possibly live up to that hype. And I mean, I'm here to say it with Luke that it really does. It really gives you something that not only does it deliver on what you're expecting, it is very fresh. There's a lot of really great, rich ideas here. As far as how to tell kind of this classic story of an FBI agent trying to track down a notorious serial killer. With that said, though, I will admit, for me personally, there's a couple of elements in here that were a bit of a surprise, and I gotta say I can't fully give a yay or nay if they worked for me entirely. I think that especially towards the third act, they get a little long in the tooth with how they kind of feed that out personally. But like many others, I could see this working completely for them. And I think maybe I would have found some elements to be a bit more effective had they stayed on one side of the aisle instead of crossing. That's all I can say without getting into spoilers.
Yeah, and looking at this film, I had this conversation with my wife on the ride home, just about it, where there's in the conversation of being prepped in order to watch this film. Dylan did a lovely list on a couple of films maybe you should watch. I know this one, there's been a big comparison to Silence of the Lambs. And Silence of the Lambs, one of my favorite films, is very much just a psychological serial killer film. This one adds in a different element. I mean, we're talking about the occult, and it delivers in that sense. And I think that's what makes Longlegs for me stand apart. This is something, I talk about Malignant on the channel a lot, where there's an element in that you're either in or you're out in terms of those horror elements that they bring. And I think Longlegs is also going to be that, especially for a general audience hopping into this film expecting just a straight up serial killer film. They add in a couple little extra elements that I think could be a little dicey for an audience of whether they're going to be on board or not. But for me, I made that quick decision as we were watching this film to say I'm on board with this, because we don't see this a lot, certainly not with psychological horror, where you add in anything of the occult. Well, there's been occult elements, but the way they do it here is very different. Dylan used the word fresh, and I really do see that as a fresh take here. And when you're looking at these psychological horror subgenre, a lot has been done, and there's not really more avenues to travel down in terms of bringing those story elements in and make it feel a little more grounded or anything. But I like the way that they do it here because it opens up the spectrum, I think, in terms of what we do get. So for me, the elements that they add, that they play with here, it just absolutely worked for me.
100%. And a lot of those elements come down to the cast for me, especially. I know everybody has praised Nicolas Cage, and I mean, the performance is one in a million. I mean, it is something very odd, very strange. Admittedly, a little bit of an adjustment because, they've done a really great job in this marketing, I will say, to kind of disguise his voice a little bit, to sound less Nicolas Cagey. But when he has his moments, where it's like, okay, that is Nicolas Cage. I can hear it in the tones and the voice, but he's still creepy as hell and does a great job. But my biggest surprise walking out of this, I knew she was going to be great, but I did not expect to be walking out and saying I preferred her performance, was Micah Monroe. I thought what she brought to Lee Harker was such a unique and interesting way to kind of handle this character. This character, it seems to be, and I will only say this, seems to be on the spectrum, I believe. And I thought that was such a unique and really inclusive way to kind of bring some of those elements in there. And I think that every scene that you follow her along for this ride and in this story, you really feel the tension. You really feel the gears turning in her head of just how important it is to track down this killer and make sure that he's brought to justice.
Yes, and what a lovely dichotomy of performances here, because you have Nick Cage, as a serial killer that is turned up all the way to 15, to be honest, and I think it works for me. Like you said, it's a bit of an adjustment because you don't know really what to expect here, but they really unleash Nick Cage here, and he really goes for it. And I think there's some scenes in here that are downright terrifying for me. Especially when he's got this, standalone monologue. It really is just absolutely unsettling, the range that he gives, and just the way that he presents that, and as opposing to Micah Monroe's performance, which is a little more subdued. And I think when we talk about these performances, not everything has to be a 10, not a 15. The subtleness is the art of the performance there, and you certainly see it here. And I love, I picked up on that. I think that her character is on the spectrum as well, and I love that writing aspect to it because we're never specifically told that. It's just from a performance standpoint here, and you're able to pick up on that, and you kind of see this, the cat and mouse game as she's trying to track down the serial killer of Nick Cage, who is way more vibrant in a sense. I love the way that these two play off each other when they're in scenes together. It just absolutely works because he is dialed to that 15 and she is this more subdued character, just kind of taking it all in, as a lot of people would, because you wouldn't really know what to make of Nick Cage's character here. And there are moments of laughter in Nick Cage's performance, I think, but I think that's kind of, you can't really peg mental illness in terms of this is the way it's supposed to be presented, because in real life, a lot of people tend, unfortunately, to laugh at mentally ill people. And, I think it's a bit of a disservice. And I think Nick Cage bringing that element to this performance adds that kind of subtext to it. I think, it makes that performance a little more prominent for me. So I think, the way these characters play together, I think we get even more than, as we have that direct comparison to Silence of the Lambs, the way that these characters play on screen, I think is a little more prominent than what we would get in something like Silence of the Lambs.
I agree. And I think that it definitely, you get a lot more of an exploration with these characters than you would something like Silence of the Lambs, which again sets this film apart from its contemporaries. I think that as the whole of this movie goes, I love all of that. I think that there are other standout members of this cast. I think the prosthetic work on Nick Cage is something just so memorable.
Unsettling.
I love it. I love how they tease it out. I gotta say, this is definitely a film, I've brought it up a couple times this past year, of just leading with confidence. Oz Perkins just knew the kind of movie that he wanted to make. And it feels, for I want to say about 98% of it, like he is not buckling to anything. Then comes a moment in the third act that, if I am going to be completely honest, I think I could have maybe done without. I think that maybe a little less. It feels very like, okay, now we have to catch everybody up and we have to make sure that everybody understands exactly what's going on. Because I think that had they done that in a little bit more of a subtle way, I would have been more on board for it. But I could easily see somebody who's not as into kind of the, let it lie. I don't need to know everything. Maybe loving that. I think that, you have to kind of remember that you're not just wanting this to play towards, hardcore horror fans or hardcore cinema lovers. You need this to go to a general audience if you want this to get the kind of pop that Longlegs has received thus far. And again, it's such a minor critique and something that's so personal to me that it is not going to hurt subsequent viewings of this film. I'm talking to Luke right now that I may wake up tomorrow super early and go see this again. That's how much I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. That was as we get into that third act there, and that portion does pop up. I thought in my head we're doing a little too much hand holding for me, in terms of kind of extending that narrative and telling us too much. I think whereas we were able to connect the dots as an audience, I don't think we necessarily needed it. Like you said, it didn't hurt it overly for me. It just felt like we stalled out a little bit. So maybe just a little black mark, but overall, I think this one was overly well done.
Absolutely. I mean, Oz Perkins is, again, from just a shot composition, cinematography, the way he laid out this film. I mean, everything from the way the credits rolled at the end to the way they opened. Like, there is so much confidence and power behind the camera here. And I got to give him all the credit in the world. I absolutely adored this. I think that if I walk into, hopefully at some point later on down the road, into a cinematic career of myself, and if I could walk away with one film, this is the confidence level and the energy that I would want to bring to said film, where I am getting every little piece just the way I want it. And it really feels like that. And I'm engaged like that. Like I said, 98% of this film. And for that, this is a must see. It is. It's an absolute must see. It delivered. I know I'm doing two back to backs with the big films. I am not I'm not a sellout, guys. I just loved this movie.
And I'm right there with you. This is an easy must see. I think the opening scene here is going to get you absolutely captivated as to what you're going to be in for a ride here. Um, Again, it's just so off-putting. It's so weird, and it only gets weirder throughout the film, especially as we see more of Nick Cage here. A lot of great performances. Cinematically, this thing is very beautiful as well. We talked about not being 100% sure. You can kind of get lost in what time period this is. There are some tells in here as to where you can gauge it. But other than that, you can really almost place this at any time period. It's very reminiscent of the 70s, and some of it does take place there, but a lot of it does not. But it just got this timeless feel to it, and this one, like I said, is a must see. This is one I'm going to easily own. I hope we get a 4K of this thing. It's going to be on my rotation. This will be an October mandatory viewing for me at the very least. So this one, I urge you to go out, make time for. Check this one out. As Dylan said, he may go see it again. This is in the books for me to say, hey, if I have some time, Long Legs is the one I will be checking out again. So this one, definitely go make time and go check this out in the theater.
Absolutely. But that brings us to the end of our review, folks. Let us know down below if you've gotten a chance to see Longlegs. Let's try to stay away from spoilers. And speaking of spoilers, we don't really have anything teed up in the books for a spoiler talk on this. But if you guys want one, let us know down below. Feel free to leave a comment, say, hey, do a spoiler talk, and we might put this out on Sunday or Monday. We'll see how it goes. Maybe we can get a guest or two. I can't guarantee that, but we'll try. Other than that, yes, I did do a top 5 films you should watch before or after you see Longlegs. So definitely check that out if you want to find some more films in there that are similar to this. Definitely a lot more uniqueness here with Longlegs, but definitely some shades of those films throughout. And yeah, I guess that's going to wrap us up here. So until next time, I'm Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.